Hey there, welcome back to another one of my redstone tutorials where we go over all of the basic components and everything like that with way too much explanation, show you a few things that you can accomplish with them, and over explain everything in a way that, well, pretty much everyone should get it, I think. But if you don't, leave a comment down in the sections. I'd be happy to clarify anything that I either overlook or is not entirely clear. But today we're talking about the observer, arguably one of the most powerful components in all of Redstone. This little guy right here makes so many machines simple and understandable compared to what we used to have to do. Long time ago, we used to use something that was glitchy known as a block update detector. Long story short, a block would update, causing something to happen, which would fire something else off. And it was this weird convoluted thing that was a byproduct of the game's coding and not so much an intentional feature, but someone figured it out, right? This guy has replaced that, and there's a lot less need to understand how that kind of stuff works now. Granted, there is still a place for that kind of stuff, but that's in substantially more complicated machinery. So in essence, what does the observer do? The observer, actually, let's put down a little bit of something so we can see what happens behind. This little guy is going to light up, but we're not going to see it when I do it. The observer is going to see something happen in front of it. And then it's going to send out a short little pulse right here. Okay, and that little pulse can trigger all kinds of things. Now, in my previous episode, while I was talking about pistons, I did show off a version of this. And this is the sand placer, which let's go ahead and just show it off again. We can turn it on. He is seeing the update of this piston head moving across it, so something's changing in its space, but we can go ahead and just hold right click and we can place sand until we reach the piston limit. Um, so we can use this to speed place sand, gravel, and concrete powder, right? So boom, nice, quick, simple application, nothing too complicated. The observer's looking where we're placing the sand. If you don't have this switch on here, when you first set it up, in fact, let's just go ahead and default all of this. Right, the very first time you set it up, if you don't really intend to use it after you set it up, place it, and things, the lever I had is not necessary. That's just an on-off switch. But the very first time I place the sand, it's going to see something new, and it's going to start. And every time this piston moves, it's going to see it keep moving, and it's just going to keep going. And the only reason for the lever was so that I could turn it on and off, right? So that's one very, very easy, simple to understand use for the observer, right? Now, we know that when things move in front of it, it can cause certain effects. So over here, I've set up a clock. And this is a multi-speed clock depending on how you set it up. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, this may be similar to what some people call a monostable falling circuit, maybe? I don't know. But basically, the generic principle is the observer, one, sees the sand when it gets placed in front of it, which sends out a pulse into my repeater, and it causes an update, blah, 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 and then it loses power, and then the piston pulls back, drops the sand, it sees the sand's moving, and it causes another update. Now, repeaters, as we know, can be timed, so this one's actually going to cause problems here. That's too fast, right? So we need at least one tick on this. But if we go really fast, all of a sudden we get this fairly fast clock. I can click it again, and all of a sudden I've got a clock that's moving with half as many updates, and then a nice slow clock, relatively speaking. And, if I had a need for this, I could even put in some kind of, I don't know, let's throw an observer on there with a torch going into it, which we can, oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait, that's powering the piston. Never mind. Derp. Oh, I can do that a level up, though. Hold on. That's what I was thinking. So same thing. Repeater, torch. Nope, still holds it up. Never mind. Ignore everything I just said. But there's ways. Oh, if I put 2 sand up here, I could actually do it. Anyway, doesn't matter. But you can use this to trigger things, have cross patterns and stuff like that. Now, another use by itself, the observers can be a clock. And what I have set up here is I have them looking into each other. Oh, let's do it back here. So when you place one, you actually see the output side. So where it sends the energy, that's a little dot. The face is what it looks into. So you see, once I place that second one, it starts blinking. And what happened is this one saw this one appear. Okay, so it sent out an update. This one was here just long enough to see this one update. So he sees something happen, so he sends out a signal, which causes him to update, and it's back and forth, back and forth. So they're now sending out a signal, which is what I have here. Now, an interesting thing is, depending on how you have these configured, let's double clock this. All of a sudden, it's not working exactly the same way. This one's going up and down and up and down. This one's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So depending on how you have things set up, you might get different results, right? But the long story short, it's created a clock. Now over here, we have a very simple sheep farm. And let's actually open this up. The observer here is looking at this grass block that's under the sheep. When a sheep decides to eat, or, well, when a sheep has been sheared, let's see, let's just go ahead and do this real quick. Tool, shear, boop. Let's shear the sheep. Okay, it'll hang out for a while like that. But when it decides it's time to regrow its wool, it will eat this grass block that's directly underneath it. When it does, that observer will see an update. It'll send a pulse into this block here. That block's powered, so that redstone powers, and this dispenser right here will all of a sudden use the shears that I have inside of it, and it will harvest the sheep's wool for us. So very simple, small little wool farm. So you can get as much wool as you want as long as you're willing to keep putting shears in it. So very practical use, get lots of wool for all kinds of building things. Now, a slightly more exciting thing, and I have no collection system on this right now, so everything's just falling on the ground. But this, very similar concept. I'm not sure if there's other stuff that I could grow on this. Off the top of my head, I know I can do sugarcane, bamboo, and whatever this, the twisting vines, I know will work for sure. But they grow. Once they get to a height of 3, which all of these can get to, the observer will see the thing get to that height, and it will fire off a signal into the back onto this redstone, which will power the block that's sitting directly behind our piston, firing off the piston, and it will automatically harvest this for us. All we have to do at that point is put a collection system down underneath to collect our items, and we automatically have a renewable source of whatever it is we decide to plant here. So if you have a large need for your vines, bamboo and sugarcane, I know are super common to do this with. In fact, let's see, miscellaneous, bone meal. We'll just see it in action here. Let's go ahead and boom. So anytime it gets up to a height of 3, and apparently 1 bone meal will take this one quite high. It's usually only 1 there. See? Oops. Why are you? Oh, apparently sugarcane can't be bambooed. I did not realize that. It doesn't matter. So anyway, we can keep collecting our resources, and you can set up the bamboo in a really large array for automatic fuel that you'll have all the time. Sugarcane's popular, so you can make paper for rockets or some villager trading. Another thing that I like, if I have something I want to set off at a certain time of day, and it's not going to work in this world, I've locked the sun in place. But the daylight sensor, oh, you can actually see it when I switch between day and night mode. So also kind of an interesting little triggering device of sorts. In fact, actually, you want to see a really cool way to hide a switch in your roof? Boop, boop, boop. No, let's go up 1 more. No, let's make it 2. Okay, boom, boom. except I actually need to place this from above. All right, so we can see our observers here. We can actually take our daylight sensor, which has a wooden bottom on it. Boom. So we can hide this somewhere in a room, and if we want to, like, I don't know, turn lights on or off with some kind of a piston update, we can just right-click this, and it's a switch that can be hidden in your roof with a nice little pattern there. So it's actually a really good, slick way to hide yourself a switch, which is one good use for it. But what I usually use, if I want something to trigger several times a day or whatever, I'll set up something like this, or one that I use on mob farms sometimes. One on day mode, one on night mode. As the sun and the moon rotate through the sky, these will send out different power signals, which will update this redstone dust. Every time the power level here changes, he'll see something, and he can trigger something, which is what I usually do for one of these. Although right now I just have an etho hopper clock set up, and I'll explain the clock as a whole when I do my hopper video. But long story short, it does some weird things, which causes this guy to pulse back and forth. And as you can see, the observer here is seeing the update of this moving. And let's get rid of some of this. There we go. So he will sit down low in the middle there, right? And he's too low, but we can squeeze in here. This space is too high. This is high enough for your mobs to spawn. Assuming that you have dark, right? If it's dark, mobs can spawn here. And this clock will pulse back and forth. So if a mob spawns here, eventually the water will turn on. And will I hit it on this water cycle? Maybe. No, not quite. So we'll wait. There we go. A little more water. Keeps pushing me, pushing me, pushing me, until bam, I fall off. This is my favorite design for a mob drop setup. But anyway, the observer above, this is a dispenser that's got a bucket of water in it. So I can set up a chain of them, and I can set this up as tall as I want. So this is a very stackable design. If I want 1, 2, 3, 4 layers, I can do that. I just have to make sure that there's a way to stop light from getting inside of this, and all of a sudden I've got a controlled mob space. Then I just put some kind of killing platform down low. Personally, I'm fond of the magma block. Just drop them on top of magma blocks with water streams, push my items off in a direction to a collection system. So I have, unlimited rotten flesh, gunpowder, string, bones, arrows, things like that as I need them. This is a must-have in my survival worlds. And there's more ways than this to make mob drops. This is just one of the, I don't know, in my opinion, best and easiest. I hate crafting dispensers personally, but other than that, this one's actually not that bad. And not overly resource intensive. In fact, that clock down there, if I put the redstone dust that's right there between my daylight sensors on top of this observer, this thing will just pulse randomly throughout the day and do the same thing. It won't be moving as fast as this, which is an advantage of the etho hopper clock. I can actually set that to move much faster, much slower, and things like that. So there you have it in a nutshell. That is Ye Olde Observer, one of our greatest, most fantastic devices that lets us do all kinds of automation in Minecraft relatively simple, relatively painlessly, and it's something that I feel everyone can understand. But there definitely is some room where you need to do a little bit of practice to figure out exactly how things work and interact. Try things out, play with them, and experiment. But if you have something that's going to change periodically, oh, I thought the sheep was going to eat the grass. Anyway, and you're going to see those updates happening and whatever like that. And you need to trigger something based off of a change in the game, the observer is probably your go-to block. But anyway, if you have questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, hey, leave it down in the comments section. I'd be happy to clarify absolutely anything that you need. But otherwise, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Till then, have a good one, man.